no one was telling the truth, which is why I guess for me, I ended up falling into the very shoes that I longed for when I needed it most. And hence became like a mental health advocate, public speaker, in order for nothing other reason than to share with others what it means to be vulnerable. Show what it's like for someone to actually be open, raw, and authentic, and go, I've been through all this stuff, and yet here I am telling you that my favorite movie is Notting Hill, and I'm an absolute closet softie. I'm a big soft teddy bear, and I'll own it. I'm my own unique being. I have my own likes and dislikes, and I guess that's actually a really good question, because no one was saying it, and I know that I'm not the only one who feels it.
Mm.
And it's not like it's not. Hence why a lot of soldiers they'll blame it, going, oh, literally is like what, like in America, for example, they're like veterans jump on a plane, everyone's salute, or I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I could deal with that to that extent. However, I'm like,
there's a different level of appreciation.
We got like one day, Anzac Day. It's like what, and then guys like they put on their medals and for that one day feel a sense of pride.
Mm.
But what the other 364 days?
Mm.
I'm like, and then suddenly you're like, what? Here I am going the other side of the world doing all this sort of stuff, and you come home, people are like acting like complete and utter dickheads. And you're like, what am I fighting for?
Mm.
Because in the end, I'm like, it's not politics. Once you get over there, you realize you're not fighting on the war on terror. Like you're literally fighting for your mates. You fight to keep your mates alive. And you will do everything in your power because it's ingrained into you to stop thinking for yourself and think only for everyone else. Because when you think for everyone else and not just for yourself, literally, you have everyone else's back, and that means everyone else has your back. So you actually create this interconnected web that is far stronger and has far greater chances of survival than any individual working alone.
Do you think that's why it's so disappointing to veterans that if the culture is you do it for your mates and you've got everyone's back, and then you see that not being the case with the higher echelon or the politicians?
Yeah.
Do you think that's... I would be really angry in regards to that.
It was... for knowing the politician sides of the military had protected themselves in order when all this Bolton report come out, and then literally tried to bury SF with this whole warrior culture.
We don't have to talk about the Bolton report. It's just a general...
But it was very disappointing because I'm like, we were forged into these individuals to serve a purpose.
That you guys made us.
Yeah, we don't send ourselves to war.
Yeah.
We go to war on the backs of politicians.
Yeah.
We are willing participants in order to engage in some of the most, the greatest atrocities of mankind, which is where you strip humanity and you perform what you do is inherently immoral. That is our job.
I don't know if I would classify it as immoral, though.
What is socially accepted is for every soldier to do what is morally wrong. And every soldier must be able to hopefully find within themselves to accept the fact, because every man must pay the consequences of what he has done.
So do you think that's where a lot of the anger comes from? We'll talk about you because I don't want to...
broad strokes, yeah.
Yeah. That if you're talking it is in terms of a moral injury, and that's like you've sacrificed a part of your soul to do something that somebody else has asked of you, and you volunteer to do that, and then you're feeling that that's not even appreciated. Do you think that's where a lot of the beast that you talk about, the inner beast, was sort of that anger?
I experienced quite a lot of trauma. So in its nutshell, I was, so blown up twice. Found myself laying on an IED with the main charging my mates. Found 5 IEDs, gunfights. I was pinned down by enemy gunfire. I've had RPGs fly meters over my head. I was missed by an enemy sniper that missed me by half a meter. It contemplated my own death on numerous occasions. I guess the list, and seen enough death to last me a lifetime. I've also carried mates off the battlefield. I've lost mates. And there's a lot of trauma there. And I was 22 and 24. I was a spring chicken. And I guess, you're asked at a very young age to defy all that you are. All that is Western culture. Western culture, thou shalt not kill. It's literally, we have rules and laws that protect people from other people, per se. And so you literally are asked to defy all that you are. And I guess, and that for me is where a lot of moral injury for a lot of guys stems, or even watching on as you know that other people do it. Because I know that every time someone was killed, that is someone's father. That is someone's husband, someone's son. I'm like, you don't, in the moment you try to keep it separated where you're like, no, he is the enemy. The enemy is stripped of humanity, because in the end you need to keep moving forward. You can't sit there and dwell, but you also know, and in the moment you're able to sort of push that stuff aside, but eventually it catches up with you. And that's where obviously taking life was one of the biggest components that really obviously impact, I guess, moral injury, because I know that years and years and years down the track, after years of therapy, the one greatest moment and epiphany that I had was when I had a full PTSD meltdown on a date with somebody. And I couldn't work out what was going on. I told her a few things. I don't know. She kept asking. And then before we know it, we ran down a rabbit hole that I couldn't get out of. And then she was like, oh, regardless of what you've done, I still think you're a good person. And I just and I threw filth and more filth. And before I knew it, I opened Pandora's box of trauma that I had. I didn't even know it was even there. Trying to prove to her that I wasn't
a good person.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that no one could possibly love me because of the things that I have done and things that I've seen. I am ashamed of all that I am. And it was with the psychologist. Turns out I was lucky to have an appointment booked 2 days later. And I went, and that's where I'd learned. I'm like, this moment obviously caused me to have a full PTSD, emotional cognitive shutdown. I was like, well, I need to go back in here, because I'm like, if it's causing me any form of adverse reaction talking about it, it means it is not dealt with, it is not resolved, and I have to go back in there, but with obviously professional help. And we went back in there, and after I told her everything, she started talking, and I literally had no idea what she said for the first 2-3 minutes. I then apologized, saying I literally had vanished from the room again, full shutdown in the room with her. And she's like, okay, we've got a problem here. And on the 59th minute, after an entire session of discussing, trying to work out what was actually going on here, she goes, Nathan, when we talk about trauma, we're usually talking about or PTSD, usually talking about inescapability or hopelessness. But she's like, it's not, in this situation, it's not that. What's causing you the most grief was the sheer fact that you asked yourself to cause harm to others.
Mm. You asked yourself, or you were asked?
She asked me. Well, she asked me, she's like, Nathan, what's causing much grief is that sheer fact that asked yourself, or as a soldier, I was asking myself to cause harm to others. And that's where she said, any person who thinks like that, that is remorse.
Mm.
And that is the telltale sign of a good person.